to my channel. Welcome to this week's Mental Monday. So this week, we're having a little bit of a late night tea talk. I've got my peppermint tea, and we're going to chat about communication, about chatting. I thought communication would be a fun topic just to kind of lightly dip our toe into for a second, because it's the foundation of like every relationship, every interaction. Sometimes it is a real struggle, and there's all this advice you can find on having good communication, whether that's in the context of a relationship, in marriage, with friends, or learning to express yourself. And I feel like there's a few key things I've learned about communication that I wanted to share and kind of just talk about why communication is important. So, first off, why communication is important. Communication is the way we let others into what we are thinking and feeling, whether that's in something we create, in a conversation, through nowadays text message, social media posts, or our body language, our facial expressions. All of those are ways we communicate things, and it has been something I've kind of gone through phases with, where sometimes I'm really great at communicating and saying, hey, I need this, or I'm feeling this. And other times where I'm not. And the particular time period that I have the biggest struggle with communication is when I feel the most overwhelmed. Because if I'm feeling really overwhelmed by stuff, my brain kind of shuts off output of any kind. And it just holds itself up, just steals itself, and that makes it difficult to communicate and say what I'm feeling and actually fully get out what's going on for me. And that can be a struggle. That can put a real strain on relationships if you can't get through that. Now, I definitely do not have it the most extreme of situations, but it is a struggle for me. I can put words to a lot of what goes on in my head for me. All of that emotion you feel in that moment when you feel overwhelmed, I'm somebody that I tend to shut down instead of expressing myself. And I have to, in my head, formulate the best way to explain what's going on for me before I feel comfortable saying something. Just because I'm that type of person. I'm interested in all of that, so I want to get it right. And I know how important it is, so I want to get it right. And I think sometimes the getting it right for me is what stops me up from communicating, because I don't trust my words are going to be perfect. I don't trust my communicating what I'm trying to is going to be the best and get it across, and I get nervous that I'm not going to do it right, or some message that I'm trying to put out isn't going to make it. And I think part of that is some self-esteem stuff. Part of that is trusting myself and learning to just let me be me. Just let me express myself and not constantly feel the need to apologize for it if I say something a little off. If I don't fully formulate the thought perfectly, or if I bumble my words, whatever the situation might be. Or if it takes still a little further explanation for the person to understand. And I think that's a huge part of communication to begin with, because that's that confidence to communicate, to express yourself, to open up and share. And that is something I have majorly learned and majorly myself tried to work on. So the other aspect of it is really being detailed with what you say. Now, I have to balance this, because while I could go into endless detail about everything that I'm trying to communicate, you guys know I like to talk. You don't want to overwhelm the person. You don't want to overshare. And you do want to keep some stuff private. So the way you communicate things could look different based off of those things. And depending on what it is, there just might be details that you don't want to communicate, that you do want to save for yourself. And I think that's different for everybody, every situation. But being as detailed as you can is really even more important than I think we give it credit for, because I know I catch myself very easily giving little short snippets instead of the full thought sometimes, and like starting to explain my thought verbally mid-thought in my head, so my words didn't catch up. My brain worked faster than my mouth, basically. And so I have to back up, add that detail back in, and then finish explaining, so the whole story is there. And if I can get myself in a mode of, okay, let's slow down enough to give ourselves that time and put in that detail. And I think really for me it is just slowing my thought process down, because I tend to jump all over the place in my head. It's just how my brain works. And if I'm not careful, I have a tendency to try to do that verbally. I'm sure you guys have noticed it in videos. Maybe just a little. So that has been a major thing too. Making sure I'm giving enough detail and not discounting those. That's honestly really important to paint the whole picture for somebody. While yes, still trying to balance not oversharing and overwhelming them. That's important too. The kind of third thing that I have really found huge in communication is remembering who it is that I'm talking to. So they talk about this type of thing a lot in like creative writing classes, in English and literature classes. They will discuss a lot who the author was writing to specifically, who they were speaking to. And that's an important context to what somebody is saying, because you're going to word or explain a story differently to one person or one audience versus another, if that makes sense. So the flip side of that is what you're applying in that situation. You are thinking about, okay, this is who I'm trying to communicate this to. What words would communicate what I'm trying to communicate to them best? This may mean you're wording it differently than you thought it, or would describe it yourself. Could mean you're pulling from something you've heard them use or talk about because you know that that's on that level and can communicate that to them. It's those little nuances that can really make the difference, and understanding that is really helpful. I think particularly that aspect of communication is huge when you're obviously talking about maybe content you're creating for a specific group of people, like a specific dynamic, or in a one-on-one interpersonal relationship with your spouse or family or a very, very close friend, and it's very personal. And I think that's huge in communication in marriage. So that's my thoughts on communication and what I've been learning. A few thoughts on good ways of approaching it and how to apply it. I think this is super interesting to think about because it is such a huge part of our being and our lives, and you do see major struggles when communication does not go well. So that is what I wanted to talk about this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for having a little tea with me. If you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications on, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye!